May 5th. You just check and make sure you've got the right minutes. I think you just distributed a new minutes to everybody. Any changes or edits to those minutes?
No.
With that, we'll assume they are approved. Citizen comments? Looks like there are none. No old business, new business to review the recommendations to Town Council for 26-27, the state accommodation tax budget. Do you want to start, Dorada, or?
On Tuesday, was it Tuesday? Last week we had a meeting, State Accommodation Tax Committee met and reviewed the application for next fiscal year state tax, and we are projecting to have about $3.3 million collected in state tax for next year. We have budgeting for some interest, $30,000. And we carry over from this year unspent funds of about $900,000. Of this amount, 30% is going to go to CVB, and $188,000 is going to go to general fund. The town has the few uses of those funds for the Civic and Cultural Center, for arts and cultural events, beach patrol and code enforcement, deputies, and Trident Beach pickup. So that's what's going to be funded from state tax, and the remaining amount was reviewed for other outside applicants. We had about 8 applications, and every applicant had a quick presentation on the use of the proposed use of those funds. And you have in your book pretty much the weighted average for recommendations for all the applicants.
Okay.
And now we're asking that you review those and recommend to Town Council.
Okay, so again, just to review a little bit, our projected revenue is about $3.3 million, and after town expenses, there's about $650,000 left over.
Yes.
For the, I thought I counted 12 projects, maybe
12
8
projects.
That $650,000 is down significant from previous years because of the expenditures we're planning this year for the Cultural and Civic Center. So that historically it's been about $1.5 million or so. So it's a significant reduction to outside organizations for state tax funds. Just a quick review, and I'm not going to go through it in total, but the purpose of state tax funds really is 3 or 4 major functional things. One is to generate tourism, promote tourism, increase tourism. It's tourism focused to continue to generate accommodation tax money. One is for projects that are ancillary to tourism but important, such as flood mitigation and beach renourishment. There's also ability to build low-income housing or fund low-income housing. And then the last piece is for normal services that we offer that are increased because of tourists. So things like fire and safety and beach patrol, trash pickup, they are eligible for state tax funding to the extent we would not ordinarily be doing that. So that's the purpose of the monies. We currently have very broad allowability for applicants. And the main one that we talk about all the time is whether or not we should allow for-profit entities to apply for funds. There's no statute restriction on for-profit entities, so we've historically done that, and those entities more and more are applying for money for specific events, but we still have some general marketing, which is we do talk about a lot, whether that's appropriate or not, but there's no legal restriction on for-profit entities getting any money, or statute restriction on for-profit entities getting money. We did have one unusual thing happened in the advisory committee meeting. We had an applicant, right as they went to present, withdrew their application. First time that's ever happened. And we have some questions to answer among ourselves. I wrote a note to Turk, and I think copied you and copied you, Dorada. Their view was, in summary, if the application is withdrawn, it's no longer a formal application, and the advisory committee should not vote on that. They did go on to say that the town council and the Ways and Means Committee can allocate monies any way they see fit. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. If we don't have a formal application, should the advisory committee have voted for it? The answer is clearly no from Turk's perspective. Now, that's not legal. That's their review perspective. And the second question is, if we don't have a formal application from anybody, should Ways and Means and Town Council ultimately allocate money to somebody who's not applied? That's never happened to my knowledge, but that is one of the questions before us today. I think that's all I want to start with as an overview for the projects. So my recommendation is we go down the projects one by one, and we can talk about the merits of the project and the recommendation, and we can award either what the advisory committee recommended or more or less. And so I think that's where we are. You want to go through those, or do you want me to go through those briefly, or how'd you like to do that, Dorada?
Sure, I can go through them.
Mr. Chairman, just procedurally, are we kind of preliminary laying the groundwork, or do you want to entertain a motion to approve the tax budget and then have discussion? I'm not quite sure where we are procedurally at this point in time.
Yeah, it's probably clear if we entertain a motion and then discuss it. And we can get the information as part of the discussion. So why don't we, I'd like a motion for approval of the tax budget for 26-27.
So moved.
Second.
Now discussion.
Okay. So first applicant is Akers Ellis. This is a returning applicant. They were requesting $52,500, and it's mostly.
Mr. Chairman, might we back up a little bit before we go into the specific requests that were, the applications that were considered from outside organizations? I want to touch upon a couple of things that you raised.
Okay.
I also sent you separately, you had followed up with Turk, I had followed up with the town attorney regarding the issue as to the withdrawn application. There was actually no kind of process, statutory process, to contemplate withdrawal of applications. What he advised was that there was, as the application was properly, timely, and appropriately submitted to the review committee, it was noticed and it was on the agenda and it was before the review committee, that he did not see any statutory prohibition on the advisory committee recommending funds for an application that was before them in terms of the materials that they reviewed. Now, that's his opinion. I would just note that the one we've received from Turk was from the Tourism Expenditure Committee support manager, who noted that what she was suggesting was not legal advice. Right. So my own kind of takeaway is that there is no statutory or other legal prescription or prohibition against the advisory committee recommending funds to that organization, allocation of funds to that organization, or the council completely separately allocating funds to those organizations. But I would, it's clearly in my view, it's a policy issue, and I think the council is free to determine whether or not it thinks it's appropriate to allocate, given the circumstances.
What am I missing? They withdrew their application, why would we give them money?
Pardon?
They withdrew their application, why would we give them money?
They, the advisory committee recommended to the council that they be given, that they still be allocated, I would think it was 88,000 out of their request, 83 out of their requested 400,000. Again, a separate, what I'm saying is it's a policy issue. I don't think it's a legal issue.
I'm just thinking, why would we give them a check if they're not going to cash it?
That's a policy issue. That's fine. One can certainly conclude that as a policy matter.
Okay.
And just to, I mean, everything that the mayor said, I think is correct, although I didn't talk to our legal counsel, but I'll just read you for the record. Unless the town's guidelines, this is from Turk's response to my question about what happens if an application is withdrawn. And the response is, unless the town's guidelines state otherwise, they would think that if an organization withdraws its application, then the advisory committee has no basis to recommend funding, as the original project event on the application is no longer in consideration.
And I would just distinguish what the town attorney's associate indicated. That would certainly be true, and I'm not sure if Ms. Holcomb was provided the full range of facts, that if the application had been withdrawn prior to its submission and notice in the meeting materials, that would certainly be relevant. He was distinguishing an application withdrawn before the fact, so there were no materials before the advisory committee, as contrasted with those where it was withdrawn in the middle of the process.
I think that's all correct. I guess my point would be, kind of to your point, Mr. Spencer, the application was withdrawn before it was voted on, and that's what they were talking about is the Turk was, if it's withdrawn before it's voted on, then if you look at the statute, we have to have there's a requirement for an application, and if they withdrew the application before the vote, then it seems to me that there is no application. The other thing to note is in the voting from the advisory committee, only 2 people out of 6 voted to allocate money to this application after it was withdrawn. So the majority did not vote at all in favor of allocating any money. Now, again, we have to consider the advisory committee's recommendation, but we don't have to follow it. So I think that's all the facts. Anything else on that before we move forward?
Yeah, and I think it's one other issue that's continued to come up, Mr. Chairman, in the context of kind of our ongoing evaluation of the application of the statute to sometimes kind of unique circumstances here on Kiowa Island, is there appears to be, at least in my view, a continued kind of misunderstanding of the nature of accommodations tax revenues. They are a revenue source for the municipality, full stop. Just like a local accommodations tax, just like hospitality tax, just like building fees. And if we actually had a property tax, the same thing. Yes, so it's a revenue source. The state legislature has authorized the imposition of these accommodations taxes that are imposed not on the hospitality entity itself, but on the people that stay at the hospitality, the place of hospitality.
That's an important distinction, and I agree with you. It's the folks who are paying the tax. It's not money that the organization receives. It's not theirs.
Like when you go to a restaurant and you pay sales tax and you pay an additional hospitality, food and beverage tax upon that. That's a tax you're paying on your bill. You go to a store in Freshfields Village. You pay sales tax. That's a tax paid by the business owner. No, I'm sorry, not by the business owner, by the person shopping at that particular business. The businesses, the restaurants, the hotels, the short-term rentals, they're simply pass-through entities to collect revenues that are intended to either go to the state, to the county, or the municipality. The difference here is the state has determined that the municipality is not, it is constrained or restricted in how it can use this particular revenue source, but it's not generated by the hospitality industry. It is paid by the users of the services or people who stay. And I think that's a critically important distinction because for one reason that escapes me, the people who are providing the accommodations seem to think about that in a very different way than, for example, the restaurants think about collecting, passing through the hospitality tax.
Yeah, you and I clearly understand that issue. Just to be clear, during discussion, you will hear, I'll say especially the accommodations folks, talk as if they paid the money into the state.
It's their money.
And they should have a call on the money. And that's clearly not the case with any other tax. It's not the case with what this is intended to do. And the other example I thought of was the lottery goes to a special education fund. Different people collect, gas stations collect lottery money. It's not their money, it's money that's passed through for education. So this is not unusual to have the state say this is where this money's going to be spent.
I would love to be able to get all of my property tax back from Charleston County.
Exactly.
but unfortunately, that's not the way the system works. That money is to be utilized for a wide variety of county services, some of which I benefit from, some of which I do not.
The other thing in the discussion that came up several times, and again, I agree with everything you said, Mr. Mayor. The other thing that came up was the organizations who were asking this money, they would say, well, the property values on Kiowa are directly related to my activity, whatever that activity is. And I would challenge that in many ways, but you could say the property values are a function of the island itself. You could say the ARB contributes to the property values through the maintaining of what the island looks like. You could say that the developer probably has the biggest impact on property values, and you can see that by offering club memberships and how club memberships affect property values. There's a whole host of other people who probably, organizations that probably stand in front. Importantly, none of those count because property values and maintaining or improving property values is not a function of spending state tax money. Nowhere in the statute does it even imply this is to improve property values. So that argument falls very short with me anyway.
And Mr. Chairman, one other, before we kind of go into consideration of the specific recommendations, legal issue. There's at least one other legal issue that's arisen and have been identified and flagged, and that was noticed at the accommodations tax meeting by the town attorney's associate, is that ultimately all funds must be expended under the state constitution for a public purpose. Now, exactly what constitutes a public purpose is one of those things that, you know, there are varying shades of gray, but the advice of counsel was it has to be for primarily a public benefit. There can be ancillary private benefit to the expenditure of a public fund, but it can't be for the primary benefit of a private organization. You can't have a ancillary or secondary public benefit for with regard to a public expenditure. And that is an issue that I think comes up very squarely in some of these applications. And I would note that that doesn't necessarily mean that monies could not be allocated to a for-profit organization, notwithstanding the fact that virtually no other municipality in the state of South Carolina does allocate accommodations tax dollars to for-profit entities. But that any allocation of that for-profit entity, there has to be clearly a primary public benefit to that. Simply increasing the profitability of a private sector organization, at least I think as a legal matter and as a policy matter, would, in addition as a policy matter, would not necessarily meet that test.
Yeah, and again, I would agree with you, in total. The other thing I would add is, kind of an example is, improving the marketing of a specific hotel or enhancing their bottom line through increased tourists really falls pretty close to the line, for me anyway. But
I was
the
gonna ask about
example I
that.
think about is, if the town wanted to hire a concert promotion company that was for-profit to put on a concert on the grounds here to attract tourism and to benefit arts and cultural, that seems like a reasonable expenditure for a for-profit entity. But an expenditure for general marketing purposes that's going to enhance Kiowa Island's reputation, it becomes really kind of a tough stretch.
I would agree with that, and without kind of getting yet into the back and forth on an application like that was received initially from the Kiowa Island Golf Resort and then was ostensibly withdrawn during the middle of the process. It's a for-profit entity, but to the extent that the resort was going to apply funds to, for example, a 4th of July celebration, the town could put that celebration on itself.
Yes.
But it could also, I think it would be a reasonable allocation of public funds to say, can you do this on behalf of the broader community, given the fact that their events are open to the public. They are not simply for the benefit of the resort or the resort's guests. Any resident on the island, any visitor on the island can attend those events and benefit from them.
Yes, I agree.
All right, so I'm just going to go briefly over those applications. And so the first one is Acres Ellis, and I just mentioned some. So there is 7 members on the committee. If the member has an application, they recuse themselves from voting. And we had 1 member, after they withdrew the application, left this time, for the first time ever. So just to give you some more detail.
And
so
I'm sorry, Dorella.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's 7 members on the committee. They're made up of hospitality individuals and business owners. And can you talk about, Mr. Mayor, the other thing our lawyer told us about the committee makeup and talking about or arguing for their organization or their organization-like?
This is not actually an issue that I've had an opportunity yet to discuss with the town attorney, but it occurred to me kind of after the fact, and I'm not sure why we haven't paid closer attention to this in the past. And it may be one reason why most other municipalities do things the way they do, is that there are issues raised with regard to the application of the State Ethics Act, because committee members are deemed to be public officials as defined under the State Ethics Act, and you're not supposed to use your position as a public official to try to influence the economic benefit for you or the organization with which you are associated. Question is clearly presented as to whether that is exactly what is happening through this process. It's not, the question I guess is, if you simply don't vote on your own application, does that kind of relieve you from the strictures of the State Ethics Act, although clearly there was an attempt to influence in the discussion. That's not for me to decide. That would be for the State Ethics Commission, but I think that's an issue we've got to be sensitive, if not sensitive to now, in the future.
I actually wondered that last year. I think I asked, it was interesting, the composition of the committee is applicants, basically.
Yeah, and the struggle, and I'm with the mayor here, the struggle is when the committee members argue either explicitly or implicitly for their industry, they're not presenting, but they're on the committee arguing for their industry. Is that appropriate? And I think the net of this, for me, Mr. Mayor, is after we do this, we make a motion that the chairman of the SATAX committee put together a set of rules and guidelines for things like this going forward for next year, because we have talked about it, and we've sort of suggested to the committee, and the committee is clearly not wanting to make any changes and leave it very broad. So I think it's now incumbent upon us to put some rules of the road down to define better some of these things so that we don't get into these, to the extent we can, we avoid these gray areas, whether it's legal or ethical or otherwise.
Is there a reason that the committee members are also basically the applicants, or should they be citizens?
So I would just note that the composition of the SATAX committee is defined in part, well, it's defined by state statute. So it says that 2 members must be from the cultural and arts community, and then two from hospitality.
Lodging industry.
What,
From lodging industry.
lodging,
yeah,
and then
so
1 from
specifics.
hospitality, 2 from
Yeah.
lodging, 1 from, but anyway, it's specified. So I think the unique thing about Kiowa, in contrast to, for example, the city of Charleston, is, I guess, arguably, we have a limited number of people from those types of entities, and not just the people, the limited number of those types of entities in Kiowa that would meet the statutory requirements to serve on the committee. But inevitably, there's a tension there because, again, the State Ethics Act would say you can't be advocating for public monies, use your position on a board to advocate for in your financial interest. And that financial interest is not just individual, it's imbued to your organization with which you are affiliated.
So I thought about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask in regards to your question, Councilmember Spencer. In the statute, Mayor, is there anything in there? Because in order to address your concerns, and we are very limited, and by statute, we have to have certain industries represented. Can we pull from outside of Kiowa? So we're still pulling from that industry, maybe addresses a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Because if those applicants going to
So
apply
it's-
still, I'm not sure if we can
It's,
do that.
it's worded unclearly,
No,
but
it
it
do-
implies it should be from,
No, it says from the hospitality industry of the municipality. So unfortunately, it says from the industry of the municipality or county, but then it says receiving the revenue. So we're the ones receiving the revenue. So I don't think we could just pull from the county. We're the ones receiving the
so
revenue.
the one question I did want to investigate is, for example, Bill Richardson, our newest member on state tax, spent 35 years in the hospitality industry. He's not active on Kiowa, he lives on Kiowa, so would that qualify? I don't know the answer to that, but that's the type of thing I think we need to think about as we move forward.
Yeah, it's going to be, and we should probably further explore this with the town attorney as to, the ongoing issues that are presented by virtue of the fact of the composition, limited pool, the application of the State Ethics Act, and public purpose expenditures. It's just a unique set of circumstances here that I'm not sure was well contemplated by the legislature when it enacted the accommodations tax.
And why this is really important is this is a tremendous benefit for Kiowa, for the industries on this island, and for the residents and visitors. So it's really important to get this right because, again, we're getting about $3 million for the expenditure for the benefit of implementing this statute. So we want to be very careful that we don't, come too close to the line or run astray of the line. Dorada's done a great job in the past, but now coming up with these questions, these issues, we need to take the next step and kind of solidify what our position is and what our rules of the road are.
The other odd thing is, this is unique to the state accommodations tax, because we also have a local accommodations tax, 1% tax, so it generates half as much as this does. It does not, the state statute limits the expenditures, but does not have this advisory committee requirement. We also, what's our hospitality tax? Is it 2%?
1%.
1%. Also, so the combined local accommodations tax and hospitality tax generate the exact same amount as the state accommodations tax. And actually, they generate more for the municipality because there's not the requirement that you allocate 30% to a marketing organization as with the state accommodations tax. So they're all deriving, the local accommodations tax is based on accommodations, local hospitality tax is based on food and beverage sales. So it's all related to both visitors and residents generating that. Visitors, just by the numbers, generate the substantial majority of all of that. It's only the state accommodations tax that has this unique construct. The restrictions on uses are not identical, they're similar. I would argue that in some respects, the state accommodations tax dollars there's more flexibility built into the statute than is the case with accommodations tax or hospitality tax, which I believe both have the phrase used expressly for the purposes stated below, whereas the accommodations tax, the state accommodations tax does not.
And that's the only tax that actually has an oversight that I report to Turk, that the chairman mentioned. And just to add one comment to it, that, many of those applicants are usual, so they've been getting money, and Turk has never questioned any of it. So just to feel a little better that even though, because we didn't have any stricter guidelines that just the statute, and like the chairman mentioned, that we want to implement some more guidelines, so we'll have a different pool of applicants, but so far they have never questioned anything.
Now, I would note that the question is, what is the real authority, the role of the Tax Expenditure Review Committee? It appears based on the statute that it's simply to determine whether the expenditure fits within the statutory purposes. And it hasn't concluded, I'm not sure it's been challenged, I'm not sure it hasn't concluded that any of our prior expenditures don't fit within that. The odd thing is, if it determined, again, this is somewhat unique to Kiowa, if it determined that an expenditure was not permitted, it doesn't have the unilateral authority to require the return of the monies associated with that expenditure. It then makes a recommendation to the state treasurer under the statute, who then could require that money be, but it would only, that's all it would be, is you'd have to return that money. So if we make an $80,000 expenditure, somewhere allocation, and the Turk challenge, it goes up to the state treasurer, we can still appeal and interpose. At the end of the day, if they conclude, Town of Kiowa Island, you have to give back, okay, then we shift it from hospitality tax or local accommodations tax or general revenues.
But we do want to.
Yeah. Yes.
We do want to stay within.
Yes,
this is,
absolutely.
again, a really nice benefit that the town gets. So we do want to stay clearly within the guidelines and not approach the line too closely. But this is why we're having this discussion. This is a good thing. It's that we get this money. It's a good thing we're able to share it. And we just need to make sure that we can maximize the sharing of it so that we don't have any withdrawn by the state treasurer.
Well, and we could, Mr. Chairman, while we're on kind of the big picture issues, and maybe this is a little bit for the benefit of Councilmember Spencer, is, again, the town of Kiowa Island is unique in that the vast majority of other municipalities do absorb all of accommodations tax revenues for operational and capital needs related to attracting or providing for tourists. Charleston, the city of Charleston's a little bit different. Actually, the number, it just works out almost coincidentally that the percentage they are in their recent accommodations tax fund budget are allocating about 25% of accommodations tax revenues to outside organizations, which is almost exactly the amount of money we are this year. But this year, and we anticipate going forward, that a substantial portion of the state accommodation tax revenue will be absorbed by town uses. And that's defeasance of a bond for the Civic and Cultural Center. It's for the ongoing, extra CCSO, extra beach patrol staffing, et cetera, trash collection on the beach. And going forward, you can anticipate potentially additional claims on the state accommodations tax dollars that are clearly permitted by the statute. For example, repaving all our roads seems to be a clearly permitted because they all go to tourist areas. So the other thing that I would encourage, and I had a conversation with the president of the Kiowa Island Golf Resort about this, is there could very well be opportunities for public-private partnerships where there is an agreement between the town and the resort, or it may not just be the resort, for facilities that fit within the statute. You could imagine, for example, a new visitor center. Had broad economic benefit, would clearly fit within the statute. It may be utilized by multiple entities, but that's the type of thing that might be above the line in the future, would not be actually an application coming in from an outside organization. It would be something that the town is, determining to do, and that kind of goes above the line. So there may be one, I would anticipate that the amount of monies that are made available as grants to outside organizations in the future will continue to decline. But I think you would also agree, Mr. Chairman, with me that to the extent that we do receive outside applications, whether or not we distinguish between for-profit or nonprofit, they should be focused on events and programs and projects.
I think that's something we've been talking about for over a year now, and I could see where that would be one of the clear maybe guidelines going forward, because you can ring circle the costs, you know what the costs are, where they're going, it's easy to reimburse it, and you can have a count on, if you wanted to, physically how many tourists came and how many residents came. So I think events are something that, at least in my mind, are something that should be part of the requirements as we go forward, as opposed to general marketing.
Perhaps my only qualification to that is to not, my own personal view would be not to focus on how many additional tourists necessarily come to the island as a result of the event, but does that event provide for or enhance the visitor experience that makes the overall value proposition for visitors continuing to come to Kiowa Island that much more attractive.
Yeah, we've always had this discussion about it's not necessarily for increasing tourism, it's for maybe maximizing the benefit. And thus we've talked about more sensitivity to projects that are on shoulder seasons rather than 4th of July events, because we're probably at maximum capacity at 4th of July, but the shoulder seasons or Christmas events, that clearly fits into benefiting and attracting more tourism.
And apropos of the point about kind of at max, what I believe, I was at the KICA board meeting yesterday, and the chief operating officer reported out on traffic count through the main gate over the Memorial Day weekend, 14,000 vehicles on the Friday. That's a lot of vehicles. That's more than double or a daily average.
I can attest to, I think it was Saturday at 4 o'clock, the traffic coming in was backed up past the bridge. And
Actually,
they
I
were
went out.
all in the line of
You're right.
coming in.
Kent came out there one point when I was leaving. It was past, it was out to Andale West.
I was just after 4 o'clock, and it was, and again, everybody who was coming in were getting into the left-hand lane for visitors to get their pass. So that pass issue continues to generate traffic issues for us. Okay. Dorada, I'm not going to interrupt you again.
No, this is going to be, and I'll be try to very briefly describe. So first applicant is Acres Ellis. They requested 52,500. All 5 members voted for those applications. And the recommendation is 36,200. The money was, the application was for marketing and advertising. And Acres Ellis is a second biggest management company on the island.
And just one comment about this. I sit in a meeting and I was very appreciative. They were, I think, the only company who looked at last year's budget and last year's request, this year's budget, and saw how much money was going down, and they scaled back their request pro rata so that they didn't ask for more, they asked for the appropriate amount, given the amount we had to allocate this year, which I thought I was much appreciative of that.
I see several of these, the recommendations smaller than the application request. Is it still a viable use? Can they use the smaller amount of money, or is there?
There's one exception. You want to talk about the exception with Garden and
Yes.
Gun?
So yes, I can go to that. So Freshfields Edens, they have 3 applications, and one of them is, let me find it very quick. One of them is
Garden
Garden
Gun.
and Guns event, and
Yeah.
yes, so this application is actually for 2 events. If the if Ways and Means and Town Council don't approve the full funding, then they only will ask for funding of one event in the spring for $1,033.
Thank you.
So if we give them $150,000, they can't do 2 events. They'll do one and only request $100,000 in reimbursements. Or we could up it to 203 and they could do both events.
So since we're talking about them, so the full funding, the full request was $221,003, and all the members voted for that application, but the weighted average was 151,833. So they asking either for full funding or $1,007 for just for one event in the spring.
So
the-
while we're on that one,
Yeah.
should we just do that one while we're
Well,
here?
and Mr. Chairman, I, based on simply apart from our broader conversation, but based on the what's specifically in the application received from this applicant, gives me pause in a number of respects. One, the application says, until fiscal year 2024-25, when we were first awarded state tax funding, we had absorbed all of these marketing expenses within our operating budget. So these dollars are simply a substitute for monies that they were otherwise expending. So it's,
They were hosting events at their own,
no, this is Acres Ellis.
oh, I'm sorry, you're back to Acres Ellis, sorry.
Oh, Acres, oh, okay,
Acres
I
House.
thought, okay,
Yeah, I'm
all
sorry.
right.
Okay, I'm sorry, you want
Oh,
to
yeah,
talk?
yeah.
We can go back to Acres Ellis, that's fine.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
let's
she
go
was
from
just
start.
doing the Freshfields in response to his
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
So we're doing Acres Ellis. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Another thing, they're not providing the accommodations, this applicant. They're simply a property management company. Furthermore, and this is the one that really, I just don't quite get to understand. I mean, I appreciate the frankness.
Sure.
We anticipate guest nights and rental revenue to remain steady through 2026 and beyond. So, to be clear, this money isn't in any way designed to increase tourism based on their own representation, nor is it actually providing in any way, shape, form, or fashion for tourism.
Well, remember, we have agreed that they don't have to increase tourism.
No,
But I take your
I'm
point.
taking both points.
Yeah.
Nor is it in any way, shape, form, or fashion providing for tourists generally.
This is, as my understanding, this is basically their costs to advertise on Airbnb and to advertise on
Their own website.
their own website and, not Realtor.com, but whatever the other rental, VRBO. It's basically VRBO costs and Airbnb costs is what they're trying to supplement.
But but what it appears, based upon the representation, what we know from the pool of short-term rental licenses, is that number hasn't changed much. 1,340 this year. I mean, it's kind of been very, very,
Steady.
very flat. The overall number of the product, the number of bedrooms available for rent on the island has not increased. They're suggesting that it's going to stay steady going forward. So how is this a appropriate public purpose use of public monies? And therein, I think, kind of lies the quandary, particularly when you read, again, with their own application.
Yes, so this is not an argument for or against. To answer your question is, I could see them saying, okay, I'll advertise on my own website, but I won't advertise on VRBO anymore. And that would reduce their marketing reach, certainly, reduce their costs, but it might impact tourism if tourists only use their marketing website. So,
Or
again,
does
I
it
can understand
simply mean they're competing for a share of a non-growing pie? So the question is, maybe if they do less marketing, it doesn't mean less tourism. It just means more people are staying at, ESPN properties, resort properties, or others. But there's literally no evidence whatsoever presented in this application that this is going to actually increase tourism overall, if that is an objective of the statutory permitted expenditures, which it is. But if it's not going to increase tourism, that needs to be providing for tourism, facilities or events or something that enhance the tourist experience. Simply advertising is not doing that.
yeah, so I agree with you, but sort of in a different tract, is there, as I understand their advertising, it's the same across the year. I mean, they've done the research and they know what the prices are, but they don't increase their marketing for the shoulder seasons or for Christmas or anything like that. They just have a website that's up there that you can rent from, and it's the same with the other couple of folks. So it's not doing anything to increase, even though that's not a statutory requirement, but it's not doing anything to enhance the visitor experience either.
So where does this leave us with these applications that have been recommended? I mean, because there's recommendations to fund these.
And that's the question. It's ultimately a council decision, and the Ways and Means Committee's got to make a recommendation to full council on each and every one of these.
I mean, are we getting out our pencil and redoing the homework, or what are we gonna?
Yes.
Because we've got to approve this, the ultimate state tax budget in the context of the town's budget.
So there's really three organizations that fall in this kind of bucket. So it's Acres Ellis, it's Andel Inn, and it's ESPM. And I think we would argue, I think I could speak for you, saying they're basically requesting money that supplements their current marketing budget. And it doesn't really change anything per se to enhance the visitor experience. It doesn't do anything to increase tourism, even though that's not a statutory requirement. And it doesn't do anything necessarily to focus on the shoulder seasons. They might argue there's a couple events buried in their marketing, but that's not the purpose of this money. It's just something that's involved in it.
As opposed to Garden and Gun, which draws people in.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to put up the dolphins as one of the pages in there, dolphin strand feeding, and they're going to put up golf as one of the pages in there. But I struggle with that because CVB is already doing that type of marketing and doing a spectacular job. So it's really, that's the incumbent question for us is, do we want to supplement effectively general marketing budget?
It's things like, the marathon and garden and gun and all of those clearly bring in, whether you like it or not, some cases, but those clearly bring in a lot of visitors to the island, some overnight accommodations, some simply day or staying accommodations elsewhere, but they're still spending dollars here. You're getting sales tax revenues, hospitality tax revenues, et cetera. But those are the types of things that clearly bring people to the island.
And again, as you're thinking about this, this is exactly the type thought process that I want the chairman of the advisory committee to take up and define these kind of rules of the road, so we don't spend 50 minutes kind of talking about, here are the issues, here are the rules of the road, here's the regulations, how do we fit these,
Guidelines.
dovetail these pieces together? Yeah. So
Now-
it's clear that this applicant is deserving, it fits, it generates tourism, it enhances tourism, it focuses on shoulder season, it's an event.
Accomplishes what we
Not,
want.
it is or is not supplementing their marketing budget, it is or is not a public company. All that I think we should do afterwards, but that's what we're talking about ultimately.
But you do raise an interesting procedural issue. So, and given mindful of time, well, I've been here 50 minutes and we've got another important a council meeting upcoming where we have to approve, well, what is on the agenda is to approve the town's budget, which we have to do before the end of this month, before the beginning of the next fiscal year. If we're not prepared to complete this work or make a recommendation to council, then council would have to defer consideration of the budget, and we'd have to schedule a subsequent special call meeting to work through these issues, unless we work through them all right now. And then whatever we decide here is, and I'm not sure, right? I mean, that's,
Well, unless you approve the $650,000 will go to outside applicants in the budget. And not specifically to whom, but just the total amount that we presented, that how much.
But then we would still have to.
Oh, yes.
The council would
Council
still have to
needs to
do this
approve it.
either this afternoon
Exactly.
or at a special call meeting. I'm saying one way or the other.
With the budget,
No,
with the budget, you're just going to approve 650 for outside applicants, not specific applications.
Well, let's try and get through this in the next
Okay,
15 or 20
I
minutes.
see what you're saying.
Yes.
We'll approve the budget without the specific allocation amounts,
Correct.
which we could do.
We can do that.
Later, okay.
Or maybe we can do it now.
So let me make a recommendation, maybe to jumpstart this process, to kind of streamline a little bit, is my thought would be any project that did not get a majority of the votes, so 4 out of 6, we should scratch. And it becomes even easier when you look at 4 of the projects got either 1 or 2 votes out of the 6. So I think we scratch those 4 projects would be my suggestion to start this.
So that would be Heels with Hearts. This is a returning applicant. They were here, they received some money for the first time this fiscal year. They organize series of concerts at Mingo Point. The application was for $8,000, for $25,000, and we had one member that voted, which ended with $833 on average, on weighted average.
So I would suggest we strike that one.
So that's a 0.
And then,
And the two we had 2 members voting for Low Country Land Trust. This is also a returning applicant. The money is for the park by the Angel Oak.
Which strikes me as a tourist thing.
So yeah, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I kind of appreciate where you're going, and I do, the process that if somebody simply got any vote, they get some money is an issue in of itself. My concern about going down this process is I actually believe, just as where you were going, that certain of the things got only a limited number of votes are exactly the kinds of things that I would support as a tax accommodation expenditure. The votes were a product of people's, protecting their own self-interest.
And I'll give you an example. I had guests in town this weekend, and I took them to Angel Oak, and we looked all that
We
up.
did when our family was up
Yeah.
here as well. So that's the challenge I
Okay,
have.
so you want to leave Angel Oak on the list?
Well, I would, my own personal view is that's exactly, it's the biggest tourist attraction in our area. Now, I respect the chairman's view that he thinks that maybe that's a little
Too far away.
Too far away, the 8 miles. I personally do not, but I respect that that's a legitimate kind of policy decision. But it is, without question, in close proximity to us, the single, largest tourist attraction, attracts the most
Okay,
tourists.
so let's leave that on the list for right now.
And if I just add, there's a conservation interest. They're really going to develop the area. Yeah.
Well, I think in the future, that number will substantially increase
I do
when they
too.
do this whole project.
So
Well, it might be
thing-
funded from a different bucket.
Right.
In more significant size than through SATEX.
Potentially, yeah, yeah. I guess my thinking was, based off the last 50 minutes of conversation, it seemed like 3 of these potentially need to be disqualified and those funds reallocated.
That's what I'm trying to do. So
Okay.
what 3 do you think should be disqualified?
It would be the Acres Ellis, the Andel Inn, and the ESPM. Is that, if I'm tracking properly?
So basically the general marketing budgets.
Yeah. That offsets operating expenses, doesn't draw in tourists.
Well, I've expressed the same concern about the 3 of those. The only issue as a practical matter that I would raise is, do we go along with the committee's kind of recommendation, how flawed it was, and deal with it in a, completely different fashion going forward? I don't have a strong view. I am personally much more supportive of, I don't personally support any of those allocations, but they were a committee recommendation. I personally support some of the other applications, much more so than fellow committee members did. But again, the fellow committee members took the view that they generated the accommodations tax revenues, and therefore they should all go to them and not these other kinds of organizations, which is every other municipality does it exactly the other way around.
Okay, so at the end of the day, guys, we need a number. That's what we're looking for.
Right.
You've suggested 0 for 3 of them, I think.
That's what I suggested.
Do you have a suggestion for Acres Ellis, Andel Inn, and ESPM? Go 0, you can do the allocation they requested. My sense is you'd like to do less. So what's your? You have to pick a number. Can't talk anymore.
The other thing that I just will say that also troubles me a little bit is, in the one case, at least with regard to, I believe, Acres Ellis, as they noted, they specifically requested a lot less than last year. In the sense, they're getting penalized for requesting less than those other organizations that did not listen and continued to request a lot more.
Well, you can look at Andel Inn. They awarded 150 last year. They requested 175 this year.
Yeah. Whereas,
They didn't listen.
yeah.
Well, if I can only mention, those 2 were at the meeting where we share with them, last meeting, how much money is going to be available. There was
Yeah.
no representation from ESPM, so if they didn't watch the town council meeting, they would not know that the amount is going to be significantly lower.
Okay, but
Just
in
their
if you're
defense.
not paying attention to stuff that's going on and you're
it's-
requesting, you say,
Yes, sir. No,
It's kind of more-
there were options for them to know that, but
It's kind of more binary for me, are they eligible or not, based off of our interpretation? Not a weighted thing, it's a,
So I think there are clear legal issues presented, but I think where this discussion is more as a policy matter. There may be an opinion of council at some point in time that this is, that council would, a formal opinion, this would be a questionable use of public purpose dollars. At the end of the day, unless that's challenged, I mean, the money is spent. The question is, as a policy matter, do we believe this is the best use of these funds? Now, then the issue becomes if we don't spend all of the $650,000 available, it just kind of rolls over to next year, or we can make a decision to reallocate some or all of that to
Well,
other.
remember, the 650 was actually raised from 400, so there's technically some,
Oh, yes, yes,
we can spend the state tax money on some of our internal house needs and then not spend some of the other non-restricted funds. So there's 250 grand we could,
Or, by the way, we're not constrained, but what, I think you're absolutely right. We're approving a state tax budget. We could come back mid-year and invite new applications and.
we've done that in the
Yeah,
past.
you know, and define, we could define down here and come back and say, you know, we're looking for projects,
Still looking for a number.
but I know.
And I haven't actually heard of Heal with Hearts, but it sounds like it's a legitimate thing based off the buckets that we're defining.
That one is, has a lot of, from my standpoint, has a lot of problems.
Oh, it does? Okay.
What wasn't clear to me, and wasn't there, and I wasn't a member of the committee, so I wasn't asking questions of the applicants. If they were here, I would ask, is that a fundraiser?
Oh,
Okay, okay.
That was one question. The other question was, there was not really, if you look at their website, it's like they tailored the application to the requirements of the money. If you look at their website, it's got nothing to do with tourism at all. It's really for local children to experience the arts.
To me, it's the type of thing that should come in.
charitable grant?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
And I actually mentioned that to them in the meeting.
And they actually, their numbers where they said they're going to be one event in Mingo Point, yet they were saying the number of tourists that would bring in is 4,000. I'm going, they're not going to be 4,000
Not seen that.
Mingo Point. That's just
Yeah.
not. So that's,
about backing up
again,
traffic.
well, I mean, it seems like a very worthwhile event, whether it's appropriate for kind of
Yes.
what we're trying to achieve here or not. Again, Mr. Chairman, what I think Stephanie pointed out, and maybe we should look at Charleston County or Charleston City, others, they do, at the beginning of the year, a joint application for grants and aid through either a kind of a charitable program and/or accommodations taxes. And it's actually, I think it's a worthwhile way to potentially approach all of this in the future. But I know you're still looking for
For a number, you know, numbers.
I mean, we're kind of doing this from the 30,000-foot level
Yeah.
because a lot of the pencil work has been done by the committee, but based off, and I agree with the discussion we've had for the last hour, it seems to me those three would be zeroed out and those funds could be reallocated to, I mean, the example for me would be Garden and Gun and Angel Oak. Those are the two that rise to my mind.
And just again, personally, I would have no problem allocating some of those back to the resort for its events, notwithstanding the fact that it withdrew its application during the middle of the process.
Would they take the money if we gave it to them?
I have little, I'm reasonably confident that if money were allocated from state tax funds, that they would not be returned, but I don't know that for a
And
fact.
Councilmember Spencer, yes, if you all decide to, remember, they have to submit receipts to get reimbursed back. So would they submit the receipts to get reimbursed back? I'm not sure. If it's approved, we don't just cut them a check. They have to submit receipts to us and ask for reimbursement.
That's good to know. I just wonder if they
Would
have
decide.
abstained from the process and,
I think they would.
Yeah,
and the money's just going to sit there collecting dust. Okay.
I have a little bit more problem with that, because they withdrew the request, so that's, and we've got opinion from Turk about that, that says that we shouldn't, I know we can still do that, but then the second piece of that is they have specific events that they would do, and if you change what the application does, then again, Turk says that's not really right. So the problem is if we allocate it and we didn't want them to spend it on the 4th of July, we wanted to spend it at Christmas. For me, it just becomes really problematic, giving money to somebody who withdrew their application. I know what you're thinking, Mr. Mayor, but it's, if you just look at it on its surface, it's really clear. They withdrew the application. It's not really up to us to second guess, is he going to just spend that? And he said it out loud, I'll just spend it out of my marketing budget. So I don't want to second guess how he uses his marketing budget. We know that he's got a marketing budget, or they have a marketing budget. They would pay for this if we didn't allocate it. So from a procedural standpoint, I really struggle with allocating any money to somebody who withdrew their allocation, and it's in the same category, really, as Acres Ellis, other than the fact it is some shoulder seasons.
I would respectfully disagree that it's the same as Acres Ellis or any of the others, because it is to put on events that are attendable or will be attended by the general public, as opposed to just benefiting increasing the number of resort guests or just benefiting resort guests. For me, that's a policy distinction with a difference, but I just.
And I accept that, but just fundamentally, for whatever reason, he withdrew the application, and that's, I don't want to second guess his decision to apply for money or not apply for money.
Yeah, no question that happened. What really, I'm kind of withdrawing an application is, I don't know. But to be clear, I want to be careful here. I don't attach a lot of credence to the response from a non-lawyer at Turk, the program support manager, simply just reciting the words of the statute, when I also spoke directly with the town attorney, who is a lawyer interpreting the statute. Again,
For the first time.
policy, what's that?
For the first time.
Yeah. But again, I don't believe, when look the way you presented it, that they were aware of the facts that the application hadn't been withdrawn earlier in the process, that it was in fact noticed and part of the agenda materials.
Well, I explained that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did explain it. Okay. They presented a legal and compliant application, and then when it was their time to present, they withdrew it when they walked up to the podium. So
if I'm hearing right, it sounds like Heal with Hearts would not be one that would be funded, also would not be eligible?
Well, it's not that it wouldn't be eligible.
We were talking right now about the resort.
Oh, no,
Oh, okay.
thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to,
he's
Oh,
moving on.
yeah, okay. Oh, you try, yes, so I have a 0 there, right?
Instead of
You all in
833.
agreement on the Heal with Hearts 0?
I mean, it's a de minimis amount of money.
Exactly. But at least we have one down.
I mean, if are you making a motion to amend the motion to approve the state tax budget to?
I think we're just talking about the numbers, and we'll make a motion to approve all the numbers.
Okay.
Let's just get to a number. We don't have to
Okay.
do the formal.
Okay.
We'll do the formal at the end.
Okay.
So we're in agreement. Heal with Hearts is,
0.
our recommendation can be 0. Okay. Acres Ellis, requesting 52, state tax suggested 36. This is general marketing purposes. You want to give 0 or some money?
the last hour of conversation is telling me 0.
I don't have a problem with that. I could agree with that, but I could also agree with some amount. But the problem is, if you agree with any amount, then what is the basis of that amount, unless we are making an affirmative decision here to potentially reallocate those dollars, a lesser amount, or if we zero out to other organizations.
I think that would be my approach, is to whatever, I would stick with the 615. We could go to 650, but at least reallocate the 615 to other organizations.
Okay,
So I'm going to suggest, I'm going to suggest we cut in half Acres Ellis, Andel Inn, and ESPM. And we do, call it 18, 55, and 15 and a half.
I'm sorry?
18, 18 for Acres Ellis, 55 for Andel Inn, and 15.5.
How do you get to 15.5 for
Yeah, I
that?
thought it
Isn't
would,
that half of 31?
Half of the recommendation.
No, that's the gathering ground.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I apologize.
9,500.
It would be less than 10,000.
Yeah, like 9,500.
Yeah, just call it 10,000 is for round numbers.
Okay.
Okay. So the Conservancy has a request for.
Wait a minute, we got to see if they,
Oh,
is that acceptable to everybody? It's not zero, but it's something, and we'll define the requirements after this for the next year, and they can apply again, or do you want to go to zero? So I have a number. That question is, you want to use a number or zero?
I mean, I don't want to be hardball, but we just spent an hour convincing me that it's zero.
I do not believe those are appropriate uses of that.
And it sounds like zero is,
But I'd like there to be a consensus on that, Mr. Chair. My vote would be dependent upon whether there is a consensus on a view.
I'm fine with zero. I would vote zero too.
Okay?
okay. So Conservancy, they requested 200,000. There were two members that voted that the average was 31,000, and that money would be for that gathering ground across the town hall to make it a. Oh yeah, like
The old Rosebank place. And what would they do specifically with the money?
it's.
Was it to put in their learning center or whatever it is they're planning?
It was going to be, so as part of Phase 1, I think there's 3 phases. Phase 1, I think total was going to be well over millions of dollars, maybe 10 million, over 10 million.
I think the entire project's about $8 million.
About 8 million, okay, so I'm not sure. So this would not, so Phase 1 would, I think they're going to have trails. It's not covering the building. The structure itself may be Phase 3 down the road.
Yeah, the
but-
structure itself is later on.
But Phase 1, they had trails and some other things. They're getting money from the Greenbelt Conservation Fund, probably fundraised through the donors. But did they, for Phase 1 for this money, I don't know what else. I know they talked about trails. I don't know if they're going to do signage.
Just the agricultural tourism destination, so.
What they said, Phase 1 is open the site to the public and begin delivering experiences. This includes the development of public restroom facilities, which is actually expressly
Explicitly.
permitted state tax expenditure, the establishment of the initial trail system, and the installation of the Sweetgrass Pavilion, which would be what would be facing along Betsy Carson Parkway. So Sweetgrass basket makers and other local artisans.
Where are people going to park for this?
They will have parking, I think, a little bit, they've identified it.
So when you turn in, it's going to be sort of right there on the left, kind of going back. I think it's like 20 spots. There is a,
It looks kind of roped off to me now when I drive by, that's why I was wondering.
they had actually an architectural rendering.
Good thing.
Yeah, they've got it in this little map. It's
Oh, they
actually
do.
midway in.
Okay.
Show them the map.
Yeah, it's midway in.
Going back that lane? Okay. That looks nice.
So that's what it would look like. I thought there was actually a layout.
I kind of have the picture though in my
But
head.
it's this kind of circle right back in here.
Okay.
There is, what shows, one map does show exactly where the parking is.
Yeah, that's the, I think, yeah.
It's D on the little,
This is it.
Oh,
Yeah, this is it, right here. So you come in and see that it's got the circle right here.
oh, okay.
And this is all of the property.
Those are the trails.
And these are the future trails and the event centers and stuff are back here. Pier and some, I don't know.
Oh, neat.
But this is like Resurrection Road.
And my view is, in addition to the conservation benefits, just like Angel Oak, this is the type of facility that visitors to Kiowa Island will
Yeah.
go to. It will attract others. The Sweetgrass Pavilion will be,
And then they get lunch at Fresh Fields or something, yeah, or the ocean course.
yep.
Okay, so they requested 200,000 and the recommendation is 31,000.
So we just created $85,000 from the other three.
No,
My-
more, a lot more than that.
No,
You zeroed them all out.
we didn't zero them out, we gave them half. Oh, we zeroed them out. Oh,
We
we did
zeroed
zero them
them
out.
out.
Oh, okay. So my recommendation would be, give these guys at least $100,000.
I'm comfortable with that. Did we decide to zero out Heal with Hearts?
Yes.
You did, okay.
So 100?
If that's your recommendation, Mr. Chairman, I could support that.
I'm on board with it.
Okay? And then,
The next one is Freshfields, the Edens, and this one is for $40,000 and it's for tourism promotion.
The Fall Festival event.
This
That
one,
seems legitimate.
yes.
so, again, all 6 members voted for allocations here. I think this one fits squarely in what the guidelines are trying to do, what we're trying to do theoretically and practically. I think I would start, my view would be to start fully allocating all 3 of these. So $40,000, 221, and 65. I think they bring in, they're done in the shoulder seasons, they bring in tourists, they also benefit the tourists who are on island. They've got great tracking mechanisms. So that's where I would start as a discussion.
That's fine with me.
I'm sorry, what were your numbers?
Fully
Fully
funded.
funded, so 40, 221, and 65. Fully fund all 3 of these.
I'm supportive of that.
Okay. Heal with Heart,
Let me
0.
just be clear, and you were supportive of that too?
I am.
So the next one is the Kio Island Golf Resort. That's the one that was withdrawn. There's already a lot of discussion, so the application was for 400,000. The recommendation of 2 members was 83,333, and this is for a number of events through the year.
Mr. Chairman, I may be outvoted on this, but I would, notwithstanding the withdrawn application, I think those programs are beneficial, and I would recommend or move, not really a motion, but $200,000 out of the $400,000 request.
The 2 voting members were both from the hospitality industry. They withdrew their application. My suggestion would be to allocate 0 and honor withdrawal, but open up mid-year applications, and if they wanted to reapply, I'd be happy to entertain that. I think that way we're procedurally sound. And then I would support at least 200,000 for their events. But I think just in respect to what they did, I would say I would vote 0.
I'm still kind of scratching my head why they withdrew, but I accept the fact that they did. And I am concerned about, as I brought up a couple times, the procedural thing. Nobody says no to money typically, but I tend to think that if they withdrew their application, then it's withdrawn. Even though I think the events are great.
I mean, that's 2 votes of this committee, and that's the majority, and I respect that view, so.
But we would, as part of this, reopen the application and give everybody and encourage them to reapply.
Well, again, I also, listen, I want to specifically acknowledge for the record that they actually kind of responded to the direction we had previously given. The others did
Absolutely.
not.
Absolutely.
In that focusing on
Projects.
events.
Yep.
And so I acknowledge that.
Okay. So
The
the
only
next,
other thing I
I'm
would say
missing,
is,
but-
their previous year was 475, they requested 400. I know they're looking at the cost of the events.
I just want to tell you, we currently in 426.
Okay?
So there will be, there's still a few applicants, so there will be not much left for that second meeting, second round.
There,
I
What
think we
she's saying
can,
is that,
we can allocate other
right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
hospitality tax and,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, but for that left. Okay, so then the next one is the Angela Oak.
I'm a fan of.
Yeah. I think it was just, geography that is
Pay for
not
it. Okay. Give me
within,
money to-
the gathering grounds are not either.
So we're in agreement that we're going to allocate 0 to Key Island Golf Resort,
Okay,
Yes.
Mayor?
well, I would do it differently, but I appreciate that that's the Ways and Means Committee's recommendation to council.
so Low Country Land Trust, we already talked about this. The application was for 60,000. The committee recommended 16,333 with 2 members voting. And that's for the Angelo Park.
How much money do we have left
So.
after all the, that's,
I'll tell you
after
what,
all-
let's,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, we still have some applications. So what,
And by the way, I think we may
We're at
need to go
420.
back and revisit, we may need to go back and revisit some of these, because, for example, while I'm very supportive of, the Freshfields application, giving them all, when the amount of money available was, in its aggregate, only 40% of the amount requested, that it's probably not realistic for everybody to get kind of
full funding.
full funding.
Yeah.
So,
And these numbers aren't final. I
Yep,
take your
yep.
point exactly. I was thinking we go through and see what the total was, and then we could revisit,
yes.
especially the 100% allocations.
kind of mindful of that, I would support Angel Oak at, the request was 60, but we were at 40,000.
That's reasonable to me.
I would support 40 also.
Okay. The next one is Low Country Marine Mammal Network. It's a returning applicant. They requested 21,000. Committee recommended 15,167 with all the 5 members voting for it, not all of them. And this is for number of, to enhance the trips, the dolphin fence trading.
So this one, I would, the range was, you got 5 out of 6 votes, the range was up to 21,000. I would suggest fully funding this. This is only the second time they've come back. This is something I think we should encourage, so that there's control of the dolphin viewing down there.
I'm fine with that.
I'm
I
fine
get
with that.
frustrated every time I go down there and see knucklehead behavior.
Yeah, right, in the water, right, yeah, okay.
The picture Lauren showed at the Kiowa Conversations of somebody taking a fish out of the dolphin's mouth just was incredulous.
So we're okay with 21? Mr. Mayor?
That's fine.
Okay, and the last applicant, the chairman promised them to be first next year, because they had to sit through like 3 hours of the meeting. But anyway, so it's St. John's Fire District. It's a returning applicant. They requested 116,371. The committee, all the members voted with the average of 90,562. And this is for the, I'm sorry? Yeah, for the medical staff, pretty much salaries for
Additional
additional
paramedic,
medical
additional
paramedics.
paramedic support on the island.
Oh,
We're 24 hours around the clock. So it's 50% allocation for 3, I think, so it's round the clock coverage.
That's righteous.
On island.
And this is one, Mr. Chairman, I would be supportive of the committee's recommendation.
So 90,
Yeah.
call it 91,000 for round numbers?
And I'm comfortable with that. I mean, my question always is, can they execute what they're trying to accomplish if we give that money, or is it all or nothing?
A brief conversation with that about the chief, I think
They'd find the extra money?
Yeah.
If we
yeah.
kicked in, that helps, okay.
Okay, so 91,000.
With that, we are at 577, 565 with 72,000 remaining, or still to allocate. If you want to go back,
How much?
So we're,
72,000 left.
Okay.
72,000 for 35.
so we can leave it like this, or we can increase those who are under-allocated or under-requested, or?
Well, and one of the things, to your point, Mr. Chairman, regardless of where we end up here, whether it's the Andelin or anybody else, what I would, encourage any applicant to do, and this would be the resort as well with regard to available dollars that may be unallocated right here, and further growth and other hospitality or local accommodations tax funds, to consider reapplying. The only issue there, I mean, with somebody like those who are in the accommodations business, really needs to be focused on partnering or working with organizations to put together events that would, like the Garden and Gun, or outreach to things like that. If they can partner, if Marriott Bonvoy wants to host a big thing for all the, Marriott Bonvoy people, a weekend, a festival in Kiowa Island, for example, that would be the type of thing, because
Yeah, if
that
they brought in a
attracts
band or
people
something.
generally.
Yeah.
Marriott Bonvoy, for example, member, I think probably all are, they have experiences.
Yep.
Those are the kinds of things that would be, I think, worthwhile to support, and would encourage organizations like that to things that would broadly, that would promote Kiowa generally, and would allow anybody coming to the island to participate in those.
I couldn't agree more. So do we want to stay with these numbers, and leave $72,000 out there as a carrot for reapplication, knowing we could allocate more money if we chose to for down the road?
I kind of like that idea.
So use these numbers and then have at least 72 for a second round later this year.
Well, I've got to parse, I need to go back and look at the Freshfields ones. I want to make sure that the third category, the $65,000.
Tab 12?
Yeah. Refresh my recollection on what that was for. General advertising and promotion?
I think so, hold on, let me,
And on the fall festival, the town may end up partnering with Freshfields. We'll see. That to be continued.
it's general advertising and promotion.
So that one, I actually, consistent with others, I would zero out and make those dollars available for future allocation.
Okay.
I would fully fund their events.
I like that idea. It's consistent with the other things we're doing, and it is, if you go through it, it's on-site brochures and posters, okay?
Yeah.
That's hard cost. But Freshfields Village website, email blasts,
Yeah.
social media
Yeah.
channels, I think I support that.
Okay.
Let's just make sure Lance,
Oh, okay, we'll wait for Lance to come back.
that also gives more for the second round, explicitly.
Yeah, it's about 137 left if we zero this out. So, and that's going to be the recommendation to town council. Unless, do you foresee a discussion at the town council meeting?
I think I'm gonna present this as a package, not line items. You okay with that?
Yeah.
We just want to be respectful, making sure you're okay taking third Eden's allocation, which is virtually all marketing, and zeroing that out so that it's consistent with the other marketing budgets we've zeroed out. And then that gives us another 65, bringing it to 137 for the second round.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
So we'll zero that out, Dorado.
Okay, all right.
So would you just refresh, just make sure my numbers are correct? Would you walk down the allocations per
Yes.
applicant?
The Conservancy, 100.
Wait a minute, Joe, go down in order of this. Start with Acres Ellis.
Oh, yeah, oh, okay. Acres Ellis, 0. Andeline, 0. Conservancy, 100. ESPM, 0. Freshfield Village, the Fall Festival, 40,000. Freshfields, the Garden Guns, 221 and $3. Heels with Hearts, 0. Oh, the general marketing for Freshfield, 0. Heels with Hearts, 0. Keo Island Golf Resort, 0. Low Country Land Trust, 40. Low Country Marine Mammal Network, 21. And St. John's Fire District, 90,562. Oh, you want a 91?
Sure. And I would also take off the $3 off of Freshfields Garden and Gun, just do it 221. I'm a round numbers guy, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give them $3.
I've learned you make big trade mistakes when you have some dangling number like that.
So that's the total of
We got the stars.
513,000.
So we have 130
513,000 in total awarded and 137
second round.
for a second round.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to approve these numbers?
So moved.
To approve, motion to recommend to council a state tax budget with these allocations to outside organizations.
Thank you for more precise language, yes. Second that?
Yes, I do, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Allocations are approved for recommendation to town council.
Thank you.
Okay, that was just our first order of business. Now, second order of business is to review the recommendation of town council, the approval of the rate adjustment amendment to the contract with Tetra Tech and disaster debris monitoring services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So while this is a recommendation for a rate increase, it's also, they're due for their first, or for their second one-year extension of a contract that's already existing. So in the event that there's a natural disaster that impacts Kiowa, FEMA requires municipalities to follow certain guidelines to ensure that there's proper documentation of amount of debris and the movement of that debris to an approved location. So we have debris monitoring firm contracted with us that's Tetra Tech. And so what they do is they track the movement of any and all debris that is generated from a natural disaster or any kind of event that impacts the island. We contracted with them back in July of 2022. And so we executed their first one-year extension last year. And so now they're up for their second one-year extension that staff is recommending. Along with this extension that they would like to execute, they are also requesting a 3.5 per 6 adjustment to the 2022 hourly rate schedule. And they provided supporting documentation to show where they came up with the 3.56% for the fee schedule for this year. Town staff requests that the Ways and Means Committee recommend to the Town Council to take two actions. One of them is to approve the one-year extension to get us through this hurricane season. And then the second is to grant Tetra Tech the 3.5% CPI adjustment to their current fee schedule. Again, this is a standby contract, so there's no financial transactions that take place until we actually call on them to perform their services. So there would be no financial data at this time to ask the Ways and Means Committee to act upon. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about the firm, their scope of work, or anything else that the committee might have.
Seems straightforward to me.
Yeah, the only issue to which we discussed at
I
senior.
just want to get a
Yeah.
motion to approve
Oh,
for
I'm sorry.
discussion.
Chairman, if you would entertain a motion, I would
Please.
move to accept the staff's recommendation.
Second.
And now discussion.
Stephanie, maybe you want to provide a summary of what we discussed at senior staff meeting as to whether in fact we end up using this contractor or not.
Can I ask a question before you start?
Brian could do that, yeah.
I think these are backwards in my book. I was looking at the one where you were recommending a 2.3% cap, but you talked about what's behind tab 4, so 3.56.
Oh, yes, sir. We're talking about the Tetra Tech contract. That it might be backwards in the book, but
Okay, I just want to make sure. So we're doing
yes, sir.
the
We'll
emergency
do
debris
that
monitoring
one
services.
after this.
Okay.
You can answer the mayor's question with regards to our discussion in senior staff, or I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to make this as compact and easy as possible. So as of right now, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the future, but as of right now and historically, there's the opportunity for bigger storm events that end up getting declared disasters by the federal government. FEMA offers an opportunity to be reimbursed for expenses incurred and during the recovery and cleanup of those events. So there's regulations that they put in place that you have to follow. One of them being you have to have a monitoring firm that tracks the movement of the debris. And then you have a debris management firm that actually is the one hauling debris from the island over to an approved debris staging area. So right now, we have an IGA with the county. So in the event that we had a big hurricane that we needed to execute that IGA, the county has the same setup. They have a debris monitoring firm and a debris removal firm. So they would actually, if we executed that IGA, they would send in their contractors to clean up Kiowa Island. And they've got an approved site over at Mullet Hall. So that's where they would be taking the debris. So if we executed the IGA, these contracts would not necessarily have to be executed by us. We would use the county's firms to do the cleanup and monitoring and everything like that. However, it's important that we do have our own monitoring and movement firms, because if there's an event that took place that didn't maybe necessarily meet the threshold for the state and the county for an emergency declaration, and it still generated a lot of debris on Kiowa, we would still want to have those contracts in place for us to have our internal documentation and for us to have the resources to move a large amount of debris.
So in
Is there
practice,
anything?
this would be a small event, not a big hurricane, because it would be
Small,
recognized.
small to medium, or small to anything that isn't quite on that federal declaration level.
And if I can add two things to what Brian just said, just so you guys understand. So in regards to the contract that we are approving, of course, again, we incur no cost now unless it's activated. With the IGA, we have to go with the county's debris monitoring and removal company. I just asked Brian to confirm he's supposed to get their rate sheet, because we will be obligated to whatever rate. Obviously, the county goes through the procurement process like we're doing. We'll be obligated to pay that rate. The other question I had for Brian to see in the IGA is if for some reason, say it is a large event, of course, and it affects county-wide or at least the coastal areas, and the county company is responsible for going in and cleaning up other areas of the county, and all of a sudden, we may be a few days delayed, but if we can activate our contractor to come and clean up our debris, can we do that? So he's going to confirm if we can do that, because as of right now, if it's a named storm, if we're going to use their site, we have to use their company, and I'm not quite sure they will have the bandwidth, depending on the nature of the storm, to be able to accommodate us if we need, and if they're able to start sooner rather than us waiting. So he was going to look at all those things.
Kind of to slightly further complicate all of that, that's only if we're utilizing ultimately the county's debris site. We don't have our own debris site. We used to have a debris site right across from Freshfields Village in there. Currently, that is not available to the town. I think we're continuing to explore whether that might be or other options. But there may be instances in which we'd want to remove debris. We actually don't have any place to put it right now. Whether or not FEMA monies would be there for reimbursement or not. We'd have to use the monitoring service in order to get any FEMA reimbursement, and we'd have to use the debris management firm to get any reimbursement from FEMA. But wholly apart from whether we wanted to get reimbursement or not, in which case, if we're not seeking reimbursement, and it's something that's not a federal declaration, we actually don't even need to execute or implement the monitoring service contract.
Correct.
So that's only if we want to ultimately get FEMA reimbursement that we would have to do that. So, I mean, right now, I would recommend we accept the staff's recommendations to approve these agreements. We need to continue to evaluate, and we are continuing to evaluate what our full range of options are.
So I'm a little slow this morning, I apologize. We have a small event. This company would clean up and remove and monitor.
This company, their scope of work is just monitoring.
Who would do the cleanup?
It would either be one of the firms that we'll talk about next, or we could, if it's not a big deal, we could do a local company. We've done that in the past. We've got relationships with local companies.
Where would it go today?
Good question.
So okay,
That's what the mayor was just speaking to.
That's why I
That's
discussed
okay.
that one
I
particular issue
Well,
with you.
I mean,
Yeah, I got it. Next question is, does KICA have these services?
KICA does have contracts with actually one of the same debris management firms that we have. I'm not sure about a monitoring firm because they're not eligible for FEMA reimbursement the same way that we are. I'm not going to get into it, but basically they don't need to have a debris monitoring firm.
And where's their site?
I think they put a lot of debris. I think they have the capabilities of saging some at their maintenance yard off of Sorrel Road. Other than that, I think that they don't necessarily have a site. I think it just ultimately gets moved to its final destination as it gets cleaned up.
Because
I could be
they're not-
mistaken.
Because they're not applying for FEMA reimbursement. So
Correct.
They're not eligible to.
I could be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure that it gets taken straight to where the contractor has their own dump site.
And we can say, historically, when it was a large storm, what KICA did was they utilized our site. So they got permission essentially as well from the resort, Gary Otter, and they used to also put their debris where we used to store our debris. We just had to keep the debris separate. So I don't know if they still have an agreement with the resort or not. But
In
we had one.
this kind of this weird thing, it all, who knows whether FEMA dollars would really be there or not. But the other requirement is FEMA has a requirement as to what the debris site has to be, which is more than 3 acres and cleared and something like that. If we don't care about FEMA reimbursement, then we can come up with potentially other solutions. But if FEMA dollars or, if the expectation is we would get FEMA reimbursement in the event of a disaster declaration, then you have to have a debris monitoring site that meets their standards, you have the debris monitoring firm, and you have to have the debris management firm that all meet their criteria, correct?
FEMA and
Okay, oh, okay. So,
Okay?
so this is part of the puzzle. We haven't kind of completed the,
Yeah, some questions still to be answered by the county, which I'm hoping to get very soon. But then we're also exploring different options for a temporary debris staging area.
So for the council, just based on the requested increase, I would say we approve it because it's actually below what CPI actually is, year-on-year CPI. Year-on-year CPI is actually 3.8. They've calculated 3.56. So if we're comfortable escalating based on CPI, I'm totally comfortable with this number because it's cheaper than what they could have charged us.
and again, these were not, there's nothing out of pocket with regard to these at all.
Unless we activate it.
Just a rate.
And, Mr. Chairman, I might even suggest, could we move both of these together?
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I was wondering about that.
You know, I would move that we accept the staff recommendation and recommend to council the approval of both the debris monitoring and the debris management contracts as presented.
Second?
But the debris management, you're only recommending a 2.3% increase on that one, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's going to be okay with those guys?
So I notified them. I haven't heard a response back. This all kind of came together kind of soon leading up to this meeting. But I'll talk to them. They did end up, they requested 3%. Steffi and I looked into some details that they provided, and we came up with the 2 point.
I see you using the July CPI for the Southeast region, so. Okay. I'm okay with both the
So
numbers.
that's how we came up with the 2.3 instead of the 3%.
That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all.
Both carry.
Brian?
Chairman's report. I think the only thing that I really want to talk about is, well, I think we've clearly demonstrated the need for more process, more procedures, and more definition around the state tax allocation process. So with the concurrence of this group, I'm going to suggest we direct the chairman of the state tax group to put together something that defines all these parameters and come back to Ways and Means for approval.
Mr. Chairman, if you would want the Ways and Means Committee to formally make that direction, I think that it's certainly within your prerogative.
I would love a motion to that extent.
I would move that we direct the chairman to come up with a revised set of criteria and standards with regard to the state tax application process and criteria. And I would also suggest that consideration be given to standardizing the application process for any form of grant and aid.
So that we include charitable and state tax at the same time, is that?
I would encourage you to work with the town administrator on kind of what that.
Does that make sense?
Does that process make
Okay.
sense?
And with you adding that, my thought was that it needs to be consistent with what we just spent the last hour discussing.
Absolutely. That's the intent.
Yeah. So I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any other citizen comments? Committee members?
Just me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Oh, Ms. Treasurer, I apologize. I'm so sorry.
I'll be quick.
I told you I'm under the weather, so.
I have the budget report for the 10 months, ended at the end of April. And we have our total revenues are about 14.8 million, which is pretty much consistent for what we had last year through the same period. It's about 2% more. And this is about 84% of our total revenues budgeted. And as I'm just actually closing May, so we will be on track with all the revenues and with some actually a little over than budgeted.
So we're, at least through 10 months, we're on track for $500,000 surplus.
Yes, yes. And it's pretty much the same with the expenditures. We are at 10.1 million. comparable to what was last year, and about 67% of the total budget, and some expenditures will be under budgeted too. So we are on, like the mayor just mentioned, we are on track for a good surplus. Any questions? No? Thank you.
Now, any citizen comments? No. Now, any committee member comments?
Chairman, thank you, other than to thank you for a very robust discussion today.
Anything else? With that, we're adjourned.